Yes, now shaggers, welcome back. Oh, we're stopping. Today, you join me in the E91 absolute turd target as I introduced to you last time round, but for a bit more of an adventure than what we were on last time. The best way to tell you what I'm going to be doing in this video is to tell you what's actually in the boot. For those of you that watched the last video, you will have seen that the Civic has been gone for a while because it's been off a rebuild. If you don't know why it was off a rebuild, to save me boring you with it this time, go back and watch the last one that I put up and you will be able to see exactly why it's been gone. But fast forward to today, it's Friday the 20th of June and I have finally got my K20 back from rebuild. And that's exactly where we're going this weekend. So I've just picked it up, I've got everything loaded in the boot, I've got the gearbox, all the old bits and the brand new, freshly built K20 A2 that's going to go back in the Civic this weekend. And yeah, that is exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be fitting it back in the Civic this weekend and seeing just how far we can get with it. We've got a few bits to change along the way, like the radiator and the inlet manifold, but that is stuff that I will talk to you about as and when we do it. Yeah, I'm so happy that it is finally the time to get this thing back, because all of the glorious weather we're having, and I've been stuck in this. I'm not stuck in this, I'm very happy to have it. It has been steed of a daily. However, for weather like this, nothing can beat K20s. So I'm so excited to be on the home stretch of getting this thing back now. But there is a long way to go yet with the running process and getting it back in the car and so on and so forth. But that is all something that I will take you guys through in due course. But for now, I really hope you enjoy this video of me putting it back in, because I'm going to have an absolute blast. So before we could even get to start on putting the engine back in the car, we needed to cut off the old radiator mountings and move them so we could make room for the new full-size rad. Now, it was a bit of a game of hokey pokey because there was a lot of trial and error to make sure they were in the right place and we got all the clearance we needed. But once we were happy with it, we were able to take the radiator out and weld them in. So we've got the bottom radiator mounts now for the new full-sized aluminium radiator. The mounts are in and sorted down the bottom, and we've also coated it just in a bit of underbody sealant, just because where the bare metal was where we were welding, we don't want that to go rusty. So we've coated that, that is now drying, and we're going to move on. Are they still up here? There's birds in here. Ah, there they are. They've been watching us while we've been doing this. We've got loads of bits laid out on the side over here. All of the bits that we took off before. We've now got to bolt everything back onto the engine, put the gearbox back on the engine, and then we should hopefully be able to bolt it back in the car. So the next thing on the agenda was putting the flywheel back on the engine and bolting it down. Remember when you're doing this to make sure you torque all your bolts as well, because if you don't do that, that would be quite nasty. And as you can see, my brother gave us a really nice view of what was going on. If you ask me, he's got a great career of being a window ahead of him. Anyway, once we'd finished attaching the flywheel, we could move on to putting on the new clutch and pressure plate. This was effectively the same process as the flywheel, just making sure everything was seated properly and then torquing it all down. Now once we were happy with all this, we could move on to dropping the gearbox on, but unfortunately we ran into a bit of a problem. Time to straddle.
I would have thought we should have had some dowels.
I don't think there was any.
No, we never had any.
We never had any when we took it off to start with.
Yeah, no, that might be some reason why that is fucked. Probably not in line.
So effectively there should have been two dowels on the gearbox that help locate the gearbox onto the block. Without these dowels, there's a good chance the gearbox could have been misaligned, which is what might have caused our main shaft problem to start. Nevertheless, we managed to get some machined up on the lathe and got the gearbox bolted back on. With the pile of bits on the side rapidly decreasing, it was getting to the time that we were ready to get it back in the car. I will also say, trying to get all the footage I need and work on the car, it is so hard for these two to not just fly ahead. But the turnaround time that we've had with the car is simply incredible, and I owe it all to these two. With that being said, we can now start to drop the car back onto the engine and get it all bolted in. This was a pretty straightforward process. My dad and my brother were guiding everything in, make sure we're clearing it, and I was sat on the control panel jolting the lift down when they told me to, so we could basically make sure everything was going to clear and we weren't going to damage anything.
Touch. Wow. Down, touch. Out, jab.
Now the idea of this was to make sure that we could get all the bolt holes for the mounting points aligned with the engine, so it's going to be nice and easy, drop the nuts and bolts on and tighten it up.
One more.
Now with the engine sat in the right place, we were able to bolt it on the gearbox side as well as the engine side, and then go underneath to do the rear gearbox mounting where it attaches to the subframe. Now while we were underneath the car, we could do things like the exhaust as well and take care of anything else that was underneath the car. We're also going to drill the holes out for the power steering pump. They're originally M8s, and we're going to put these high tensile M10 bolts in because we had an issue the other week where these bolts snapped and the power steering pump fell off and through the belt. So we don't want that to happen again. We're going to drill them out, drill the bracket out, and then put some high tensile M10 bolts in. At this point, it was then pretty much a case of just working through the parts and getting everything bolted back together, plugged in, and getting down all the parts that were left on the side. So we've nearly everything plumbed up. We've got an earth wire that we're looking to put in, and we have to put this air temp sensor somewhere. We don't actually use that because that's for the outside air temp reading on an EP3 dash, but we don't have that, so that isn't a problem. Everything is pretty much plumbed up. We're now going to try and vacuum bleed the coolant system and put some oil in it, and then hopefully we should be able to crank it to get oil pressure and see if it will start.
Not a fucking chance.
What are you doing? Just open the valve. Is that right? So because of the vacuum, what, it now sucks it out there and straight up and through?
Back in there.
Back into the system. Oh, look, it's going down. Fantastic.
Matt Armstrong's discovered one of these and he uses it now instead of getting airlock.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a smart idea, that actually, isn't it? Rather than getting airlock. Soon sucked it all up though.
That's what she said.
So after getting all the fluids in, we could move on to then cranking the engine over without any fuel, so we can make sure that we build oil pressure before we try and start the engine. Now after 2 or 3 cycles, we could try getting some fuel to the car and seeing if it should start.
The next day.
Are we going again? Just shut that door, please. No, thank you. Oh, it's time to go again. It's time to go again.
Keep an eye on it.
Yes, I shall do. I'm probably going to go just here because I've stalled it. That never happened, don't worry about it. It's not like I've got a camera on or anything. So we're now on to the day after when you'd have seen the last clip. We managed to get everything running and the car all up to temperature and everything, and it was nice and happy. So we decided to call it quits there because we had a very specific running schedule that we needed to do now that the engine's in. And just as a sort of a brief idea, when the engine was first in and we were doing the first start, we had to crank it to make sure we'd built oil pressure before we tried starting the engine. And then once we built oil pressure and we were happy with that, we could then move on to actually trying to get the engine started. So we plugged the injectors back in and actually got fuel going and then managed to start it. So once we got everything started, we left it running for probably 20-25 minutes while it was on the ramp, just to make sure that everything was getting up to temperature, that all of my gauges were working. We had a little bit of a problem with the coolant temperature gauge not working, but it transpires that that was because I'd put PTFE tape around the adapter, and then that meant the sensor wasn't earthing, so it wasn't reading on the dash. But that wasn't too much of a problem. We took the PTFE tape off, put it back in, and it's sorted. So this morning we left it draining overnight, and then this morning we put in a new set of oil of the Miller's running in competition oil. Like, I've been told to use proper running in oil. So we used that this morning. I've been round, done 50 miles. We've been checking everything over, and it all seems nice and sweet. So we've just put another set of oil in because I've now got to do 250 miles on this set of oil with this filter. And once I've done the 250 miles on this set of oil with this filter, we can then drop it out and move on to putting the 1050 in, which I'm going to be running as my normal oil. It's a little bit of a long process, but if you think about it, really everything in the engine is fresh. The rings are new, the bearings are new, the pistons are new, crank's been polished. Like, there's a lot of new parts in there, so it is definitely important that we get everything running and bedded right. The one thing that we have, however, found is I am going to need to get another higher power radiator fan, because the one that I've got on there at the minute is a 12-inch slimline fan. Cost me about 40 quid from Integra, and it's not ideal. I think my coolant gauge is quite sensitive as to how high and low it's going, because it moves very quickly. Because of the new sensor that we've got in, it's not the OEM sensor, so the dash readout could be a little bit wrong. So I've had my my laptop on it as well, because I'm plugged into the ECU, and it gives me like the actual reading. The actual temperature readings are okay, but we're just thinking sort of on a hot day, the actual fan might not be powerful enough if I'm just sat in traffic. So I'm going to get another Revatech fan ordered, and then we'll be able to put that on, and we're going to reverse the polarity on this fan, put it on the front of the radiator so it's blowing the air through, and have it on a switch just in case there ever needs to be that little bit more cooling. But the fact that we've managed to get this engine picked up, and then it was a long block and a gearbox, and it was running in the car within a day. I think start to finish on the Saturday it took us 11 hours, maybe 11 and a quarter hours from start to finish, with breaks for breakfast and lunch. So I think we've done really well, and like, I wouldn't have been able to have got it in and sorted without the help of my mum and dad and my brother. Like, the whole project itself would not be physically possible without them. And yeah, the fact that this is now back and running again, and it sounds as healthy and as sweet as it does, I'm very, very happy. So that is pretty much, to be fair, going to wrap it up for this one. I've got to do a load of miles, but unfortunately that also means I've got to do a load of miles with no VTEC while I'm running it in. So it's going to be very mundane for you lot to watch. So what I'll do is we'll skip over that one, and I'll join you lot again next weekend for when I come back and fetch the car. It's completely surreal that this thing's back, and it's going to be an absolute blast. I've loved it just pootling about this morning, so I can only imagine what the rest of the summer's going to bring, and I've got some pretty cool things lined up. So we shall have to see exactly how that goes. But for now, I thank you all very much for watching. The support you've been showing over the last few videos has been epic, and yeah, I hope you all have a lovely weekend and have a great week back at work, because I know you all love being there. And yeah, I will see you all in the next one. Peace.